All right, welcome back, everyone. We're here for another show, Q&A. Anything that I say is definitely not meant to diagnose or replace your medical care. Definitely check with them before implementing any of the things we're going to tell you today. And we always just like to dive right into so many questions to find out what you guys want to know about or need help with. So on that note, Steve, over to you.
All right, let's do it. So we've got an exciting group in our green room. And for courtesy, for those who are not within our zip code, we're going to go to Dr. Nanya, and she's in India, and by golly, it's 11 p.m. there and so on. So excuse me just a moment. Let me grab that shot. There we go. Dr. Nanya, you're on with Dr. Berg.
A very good morning, Dr. Berg.
Good morning. Or good afternoon. Good evening.
Yeah. Thank you so much. How have you been lately?
Fantastic.
Okay. So my question to you had been I had watched a lot of videos of your intermittent fasting related to allergies. So I myself had been suffering with the allergic conjunctivitis, and it's been 3 months now, and it's on and off. It comes and it keeps on coming and going. So I just wanted to know if intermittent fasting and keto diet, would it be really helpful? If we go into an organ like eye, would it help me? Or anybody who's suffering from the perennial allergic conjunctivitis around the year?
So, so just so I can clarify, have you isolated exactly what you're allergic to?
No, not yet.
Okay. So that might be helpful to get a baseline, and you can, you know how to do that. You would test for what you're allergic to. But here's the interesting thing about the allergies. There's, you have certain methods of avoiding allergies for a period of time to hopefully then reintroduce it in a very, very small level. But really, allergies are created from some glitch in your immune system. And so the most powerful thing you can do to fix the immune system is to do fasting, and not just regular intermittent fasting, but periodic prolonged fasting. So if you were to go, this is what I would do if I were you. I would definitely introduce keto for sure, because that's going to just speed things up, and then add intermittent fasting. Probably maybe your pattern should be starting out 6 hour eating window with an 18-hour fast. Okay, so you do that. And then every 2 weeks, do a 48-hour fast, okay, for 1 month. The second month, if you can do this, every week do a 48-hour fast. So now we put a lot of fasting in there. And what's going to happen is your immune system is going to be forced to heal itself, because when you fast, you're basically sending signals to your genes and to heal and repair, because our bodies way long ago have adapted to not eating because of all the times that we starved. So these bodies are really robust, and they to survive, we had to adapt and create these genes to help us survive without food. And so now, if we go back to that, we can kick in these genetic DNA things to get rid of inflammatory conditions, to regrow your brain, but especially to repair your immune system. And I'm talking your gut too. That's kind of where a lot of allergies start. But that's what I would do as the best thing. So many people have gotten rid of allergies, especially in the skin area, dermatitis, just from doing periodic prolonged fasting. And you might want to also include longer fasts somewhere in there as well. But I think you're going to be quite shocked to see the results when you do this, in a good way.
Okay. Thank you so much. I would surely get back to it. I'd start it in my regimen and get back to you through mail or something.
That
sounds great.
That's terrific. Well, thank you so much, Ananya. I hope you can get some rest. And yes, she made an important point. Anybody that comes on with us, or anybody in social media that Dr. Berg, lends a consult, we'd love to hear back from all of you to see, and I know he does, to find out whether his research is solid, and if not, he's not shy to amend it and come up with the latest deal in health for everyone. So let's see, why don't we go to social media and start off with Mary from YouTube. I have a friend who went full keto and now has been bruising very easily and very often. What would cause this change?
Well, usually when you bruise, that could be a problem with the liver, right? That could also be a problem with an imbalance in certain nutrients, like a lack of calcium can create bruising, believe it or not, and a lack of iron can create bruising. A lack of vitamin K1 can create bruising. So if you're doing intermittent fasting or you're doing keto and you start bruising, chances are you're missing a nutrient. So I would start increasing certain nutrients like vitamin K1, maybe some iron and calcium, and see if that bruising doesn't go away. I think that's what it's related to more likely, because everything else is going to improve. Your liver function is going to improve. So you wouldn't bruise unless there was something missing.
That's terrific. Okay, our happy customer Rhonda from YouTube. I tried vegan for 2 years, vegetarianism for 1 year, and flexitarian. Haven't heard that one, for 8 months. Then I found your healthy keto and have been on it for 10 months. I love it. So that's great. Just more great news from the field. Let's go to Meryl from YouTube. My father has been diagnosed with cancer of the pancreas and abdominal area and is going through chemotherapy. I read your PDF on cancer protocols. Is there any other information that you would offer to my father? And our condolences, by the way, for his illness.
I would watch every single video I have on cancer, especially the success stories with people with stage 4. And the key is that fasting, that prolonged fasting. You have to do it. It's the most powerful thing for cancer. And so you'll see why you take someone from stage 4 to getting rid of their cancer in a relatively short period of time by doing fasting is mind-blowing. I would jump on that immediately and start doing it. I don't even think you can cure cancer without fasting. So it's a really important thing. And I just have to say this about fasting. It's not a diet. It's a pattern of eating and not eating. And it's finally putting your control over your foods. Because I know this might sound off base, Steve, but people have been out of control with food in the past a little bit.
Never heard of it.
Sarcastic. Food it creates so much insanity. The worst question you can ask yourself is, what is my body in the mood for today? Especially if your blood sugars are up, because you're always going to get the wrong answers. You're going to get an insane, like, my blood sugars are off. If I asked myself that, I would want a jelly donut or M&Ms. It's like putting someone that is insane in the driver's seat and you're in the back seat and you're letting your body run your health. You're going to go off a cliff every single time. So when you do fasting, you're putting back you in charge over your body, and you're telling it when it's going to eat and when it's not going to eat. And that's a lot of power. That's putting sanity back in your health. And this food has been out of control with a lot of people. It's crazy.
It sure is. And I think I represent the portion of the audience that demonstrates the least control historically. So when I say, and by the way, intermittent fasting, but full disclosure, I started drifting farther in the evening. So 3 to 6 is my window, 7, just one more of these, piece of cheese. And I brought it back again, and it so quickly negates my appetite. I can think about something fun, but it's not pulling me. And I can easily sidestep it and not eat when I am intermittent fasting. It is, again, the most miraculous single thing that's ever happened to me, which then puts me in control. So if I want to go more keto, I'm not constantly worrying in every waking hour about what I can or can't have. And it's just a much, much better, more satisfying, way of life. So thank you, Dr. Berg, for that. And I know there's a whole bunch of out-of-controllers out there that agree with me and you. So why don't we go to our first quiz question, which is right here.
All right. What is the only carbohydrate that will not trigger insulin?
All right.
There's only one.
Oh, interesting.
See
Climb
if you
on.
guys can figure it out.
All right. And let's figure out who is joining us this morning. A good morning to all of our viewers from the UK. We have one coming on shortly. Canada, Jordan, Poland, South Africa, Albania, Mexico, Pakistan, the Netherlands, Morocco, France, Bermuda, Norway, Jamaica, Chile, Sweden, Bolivia, India, Qatar, Belgium, Australia, Cameroon, Croatia, Serbia, Romania, China, the Bahamas. Boy, China's got some folks listening. That's great. The Bahamas, Aruba, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Argentina, Antigua, Switzerland, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, New Zealand, Germany, Italy, Ghana, Mauritius, I think I said that right, Iraq, Ethiopia, the Czech Republic, Hong Kong, Uganda, Ireland, Egypt, Trinidad and Tobago, Colombia, and all across these United States of America. So thanks everybody so much for making the show and Dr. Berg's great work a success. So let's see, why don't we go back to social media, and Man Down is his handle. Man Down from YouTube. In my second week of chemo and radiation for colorectal cancer and still feeling great because I've been following your advice on IF and cruciferous veggies, and I believe it's made a big impact on my health. Thank you. So that's encouraging news. We go on to Rita from YouTube.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the one thing about cruciferous vegetables, apparently it triggers this process in your liver where you're turning carcinogens, poisons, into harmless particles. So you're making these fat-soluble poisons into water-soluble particles that can be eliminated through the body. So just goes to show you like the power of certain foods, and definitely cruciferous, like the arugula, the radish, the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts. Really important to put that back in your diet. If you ferment the cruciferous, that just takes it to the next level, like fermenting cabbage and sauerkraut, kimchi, very potent because now you actually can, especially for what you have, that would be really good for your gut, because it has not only the prebiotics, but the probiotics, plus it has the cruciferous, and even sauerkraut has the most vitamin C. It has like 700 milligrams per cup. So that's really cool stuff.
Very good. Okay, here's an interesting question. John from YouTube. Are apple cider vinegar tablets and capsules as effective as the liquid? How many should I take daily to have the same effectiveness as the liquid? Not mentioning any brands.
It's harder to get the quantity, but you sure can. You can take, I would look on the dosage and it'll tell you how it is equivalent to teaspoons and things like that. But yes, it'll be the same thing. You're getting this powdered acetic acid with all the other benefits that comes with apple cider vinegar. But there's one really powerful thing about apple cider vinegar is that it's anti-diabetic on steroids. It just helps lower the blood sugars. And I recently released a video on this, that even if someone, not they would ever cheat on the keto, but let's say they were forced to at gunpoint, they had to go off the program for a while, and they had the apple cider vinegar, it would actually improve their blood sugars, even if they're eating not great stuff. So you can have the effects of the lower insulin. It kind of buffers the response. And I just realized, no, I did not release this video yet, but it will be coming up in the next week or so, or maybe even two. But I'm going to show you how to buffer or reduce the side effects when you're forced to eat carbohydrates or alcohol. So that way we can minimize the damage control.
All right. Speaking of damage, Love Korea from YouTube. What's the best supplement you'd recommend to help get my husband off his cigarette habit?
Yeah, I don't know if a vitamin is going to do it, but I think that I would go for maybe the reason why people smoke is something connected to reducing stress, possibly, other than the addiction. So to reduce stress, then we're talking about B1, vitamin B1 from nutritional yeast. That will help greatly reduce stress. But if you think about it, when people smoke, they almost like they can breathe better. They can oh, I finally breathe better because now we're getting more, but you're breathing in smoke, but it's a stress relief. And stress builds up, and then you kind of calm yourself down with a cigarette. But comes with the package, Steve, and I think you know that.
No, I sure do. 34 years ago, I quit, and it was not fun, but well worth it. Okay, awesome kids from YouTube. Could fasting hinder growth in young children?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, sure. If you're 5 years old, probably don't do fasting very much. But the type of fasting that I would recommend for children would be just 3 meals a day, no snacks. That's what I would recommend, and make sure it's nutrient dense. So I wouldn't, unless there's there were some patients who came in that were like, I don't know, puberty or maybe 13, 14 years old, and they were like severely overweight. Okay, then we do maybe 2 meals a day. But we want to make sure for that child that they have all the nutrients in their diet. That meal has to be nutrient dense. That's the most important time of your life, is when you're younger, to get the nutrients. But of course, the average child is on ultra processed junk food with tons of added sugar. If you calculate the amount of sugar you're getting from the hidden sugars, from the carbs, like the breads, the pasta, cereal, crackers, it comes out to, if I'm not mistaken, on average, 275 grams of sugar. So that is about, I don't know, I'm not good with math, but it could be close to 68 teaspoons of sugar, if I'm not mistaken.
Per day?
Yeah. If you calculate all the carbs that turn into sugar.
Wow.
Which, I mean, if you're eating bread, it's eventually going to turn into sugar. So let's count those sugars too.
Makes sense. All right. Well, the audience leapt on the question, which asks, what is the only carbohydrate that will not trigger insulin? And 90% say fiber or vegetable fibers, and 10% say arrowroot or leafy greens. Any winners?
Okay. Most people are right. It is the fiber. The fiber won't trigger. That's why the more you eat foods with fiber, the less insulin response. So let's just compare something that's pretty fibrous, like celery or salad or broccoli. Okay, that has a lot of fiber, versus pineapple, for example. It has a lot of sugar, some fiber, but more sugar than celery.
Terrific. Okay, and whenever we mention to people listening around the world, we always have some outliers that want to make sure that they are recognized. And so there's some more from Kenya, Israel, Singapore, Armenia, Syria, Libya, and Samoa. And welcome to you folks. Glad you are watching. Why don't we kick out another question? Here you go, Doc.
Okay. With calorie intake being the same, which will make you gain more weight? Egg whites or whole eggs?
Okay, and to clarify that, so you would have the equal amount of calories with each, correct? So 100 calories of this or 100 calories of that. Right.
Yep.
Leap on that, audience. And why don't we go back over to our green room, and the second farthest person away is Amber in the UK. So Amber, if you would unmute yourself, you are successfully on with Dr. Berg.
Hi, Dr. Berg.
Hi.
Hi, my question is, what is the impact of being on and off again keto constantly, a few months on, a few months off, falling off the wagon? Is it a case of anything is better than nothing, or does it actually have more of a detrimental impact on your hormones, weight loss efforts, all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think it's definitely better than not doing anything at all, for sure, because the times when you're on low carb, you're creating these really cool benefit. But I will say that there's one of the researchers who came to my summit and spoke, does all these experiments, and so he went off keto purposely, and he started doing carbs, and then he measured the thickness of his carotid arteries within a short period of time, and they just swell right up. So I think the more a person understands like what happens when they go off keto, the more they won't do that. But if you given the choice, I would definitely something is better than nothing. So you may find that every time you go back on to keto, you might not see the results like you had before. It's harder and harder to get those results because you're dealing with this insulin resistance. The other thing about keto is kind of like one of those things that it's like almost all or nothing. You have to drop your carbs below a certain level to have it work. You can't, like, let's say you're in 300 carbs and you go down to 200 carbs. That's not going to get you into ketosis even slightly. So you have to go all the way down to like 50 or maybe 40 or 30. But yeah, so I think that's what I would recommend. And I'm sure, like, and I think you said you're from England, so good thing they don't have a lot of sugar there to eat anyway. So I think you're safe. I think you're safe. Your environment is very healthy, and so we can easily avoid those temptations.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Amber. I think we've got a little delay there, but we appreciate you coming on board with us. All right, let's see. Let's go back to social media. And oh my goodness, quiz question number 2 has already been answered, and it asks with caloric intake being the same, which will make you gain more weight, egg whites or the whole egg? And 88% of our respondents say egg whites, and 12% say it's the whole egg, which sounds counterintuitive to me.
Well, the majority is right, because there's something called the insulin index, and this is based on the fact out of guidance physiology, which I could probably pull out right now and show you. When insulin is higher, you lose less weight and you gain more weight. You store more fat, okay? So if we look at the insulin index and compare egg whites to the whole egg, egg whites are leaner in protein, less fat, which means they're higher on the insulin scale because the fat buffers or slows down the insulin response. So pure fat does not trigger insulin too much, if at all. So this is why the whole egg is better for weight loss than egg whites.
Yum. Okay, Monica from YouTube. My husband had a heart scan. It indicates he has plaque buildup. He has no pain, but his physician wants to put him on Lipitor. Is there any more natural way to reverse this condition?
Yeah, of course, my disclaimer, I can't tell him not to do anything that counters that advice. I would research in the area of this whole, with the side effects of statins, which basically really destroys your muscles. And statins also will lower cholesterol because it blocks the production with a lot of side effects, but it raises the type of LDL that you don't want in your body, which is the type of LDL. We talked about this, I think, last week on the small dense particles versus the large buoyant type of LDL. You make this shift, and we don't want more of the small dense. That's the real, truly bad type of cholesterol. So that increases with statins. So the real problem with the arteries is the carbs, not the fat, not the cholesterol. So now they're going to focus on the wrong thing and create a lot of side effects, and then you're going to end up, I think, in worse shape down the road. So read some of the books on statins written by medical doctors so you can get the full scoop on that, and then make up your mind. But we need to make sure that we get the right problem, rather than the symptom, because people have a lot of confusions about cholesterol, unfortunately.
I got it. Okay, Liz feels she has a problem, and she's coming to us from Facebook. I don't have a gallbladder anymore, and I'm on keto and IF. Do I have enough enzymes to break down proteins? If not, what should she be doing or taking?
Typically, when you remove the gallbladder, now we no longer have the quantity of concentrated bile, because the gallbladder is supposed to concentrate the bile. So so it's a lot stronger. So now we have a less concentrated amount of bile and sometimes a deficiency of bile, which then shows up as a deficiency of vitamin A, D, E, K, omega-3 fatty acids. So now we have to look out for those things. So I would take either my gallbladder formula or another bile salt product to start to help you with that. Now, let's say you want to know, when do I have enough that I don't need any more bile? If you start to have loose stools or maybe even diarrhea, then you've taken too much. So too much bile will cause excess elimination. Too little bile tends to cause constipation. So you want that happy medium.
All right, very good. Let's see. Stephen from Facebook, can you offer any recommendation for someone suffering from Parkinson's disease?
I've done a lot of videos on this. I would immediately start fasting right away. People say, well, what food is going to nourish my body and heal my disease? It's going to be the absence of food that's going to make a big difference. But I have done a lot of different videos on Parkinson's, and there's different remedies, like even B3. Niacin is really good for Parkinson's because we're dealing with the part of the brain that regulates coordination, muscle coordination. And I talk about like what deficiencies that could set you up for that, what to avoid, what you should start taking, because it's a terrible situation to be in that. So I'm just going to recommend, because I don't want to just tell you one remedy and then have it not work. I want you to do the whole eating plan, the fasting, and the whole thing. So watch those videos, especially the recent ones. I'm constantly updating videos. So I have a whole series of updated videos that I'll be releasing in the next 4 weeks that I've been working on, just because there's new information and I want you to have the superior information. So.
Well, that's great. And we'll talk a little later about your big adventure and doing lots of research, in terms of our schedule. And we're all excited for that. We will miss you, Dr. Berg, but know that you're out doing some great research that will benefit us all. Do you want to have a word about that now, maybe? So this is our last show for a while.
I'm going to be gone for about five to 10 years. And I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll be gone for like 4 weeks. I'm going to be doing some research, and I'll surprise you when I come back as far as what I find. But I'm going to be traveling, and then I have all this testing equipment, and we're gonna test some things and figure things out, and then I'll share with you in a series of videos of what we've done and what we're planning. So I'll leave that as a mystery to you. You'll have to wait until I come back. But so this will be the last show for about 4 weeks, but I'm going to be releasing videos each day. So I have some really great new videos coming up. So definitely check those out, but just the live show will be postponed.
Great. We'll have time to catch up on that. Let's see here. Louise from Ireland on YouTube. Greetings from Ireland. Love your very informative videos. You're the best. Now, I don't want to rain on her parade, but Ireland, of course, is adjacent to Scotland, which has haggis, and that's the most disgusting food I've ever heard about. So I know it's none of my business, but haggis is absolutely terrible. But we're absolutely delighted that people in Ireland are watching and getting the benefit, and I'm sure there's some people in Scotland too. Do you know what haggis is?
What is haggis again?
Well, it's I think it's a sheep stomach stuffed with lungs and some high carb grains and so on. And and it's nasty. And a friend of mine said that he actually got haggis from a fast food store, like a gas station store in Scotland, and reported that it was an awful experience. So haggis is a tradition.
I wonder if they have a keto version of haggis. That would be good.
Oh my! Well, I guess if it's just the lungs and the stomach, then that would be, wouldn't it? If you leave out the grains.
Yeah.
So
Notice the tail.
they're well on the way. So keto haggis coming up. All right, let's see. Why don't we go back to the green room, and this time we're going to go to Kathy, and she's from New Jersey, And Kathy, hang on just a moment. Let me unmute you, and you are now on with Dr. Berg.
Hi, Dr. Berg. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, perfectly.
Okay. So I have IC, and I take something called Prelief before I eat something that's acidic. And I wanted to try apple cider vinegar before meals, like you suggest. And I was wondering if that Prelief negates it, that, it's washing it out. Also, electrolytes, would that bother my bladder if I'm fasting and there's no food in my stomach? Because I take supplements, but I usually have food with it.
Good question. I don't think it's going to bother you. Excuse me. I think you should try it out. I think the apple cider vinegar will help to fortify. I mean, like, you didn't think the one of the byproducts of these microbes is to make acetic acid. So they're making acetic acid as a part of the small chain fatty acids. So I think I would try it out. The key with what you have is going to be keeping your sugars as low as possible, because you don't want to feed any microbes. But I did a video on that. You should check it out. But the other thing that I would try would be a wheatgrass juice powder, because that tends to heal and soothe all the inner tissues of the body from top to bottom, all the way down. And that seems to have some really great effects in the bladder area, the ureters, and the bowel, the esophagus. So that's another thing that I would attempt to try.
Would I take that while I'm fasting, or no, just water while I'm fasting?
I would take it when you're fasting, because you want an empty stomach and have it go all the way through and not be interfered or diluted with the food. So, and it's not going to break your fast. I mean, it's just, I don't even think there's a half a calorie in it, so per serving. So I think you're going to be fine.
And what about the Prelief? Should I take that with the apple?
I think I would keep doing that, and it's not going to be negated from the apple cider vinegar. I think that's a great remedy, but I would do them both at the same time.
Can I ask one more thing? When I fast at night, I take some of your things, your adrenal and cortisol support, and I've taken some magnesium and some your sleep aid. But because of my interstitial cystitis, I'm up 10 to 15 times a night to urinate, which I do right on the side of the bed and try to get back to bed to sleep. But my doctor had given me some sleeping pills, and then I realized that's a controlled substance, and I didn't want to do that. And then my daughter gave me some gummies that she bought that have THC infused. Am I still okay to fast and take those things?
Yeah, I definitely don't like the THC remedy, but I think what I would recommend that you do is I would, we just like, it's like minimizing the problem. So if you could, like these supplements you take at night, maybe only ones that actually they're natural and they actually help you sleep, but everything else as far as supplements go that don't have to be taken at night, don't take those past like 7 o'clock at night. And that includes any water too. So that way we could just minimize the amount of fluid inside your body. The other thing that you might want to attempt, which might actually help you, think about it. Potassium is a kind of a diuretic, but sodium, it tends to retain fluid. So if you were to have more sea salt in the evening, you may actually have less urination through the night, because it's going to help you retain certain things. So it's just something to try. But I understand that this is a very irritating problem. I'll have to also, I'm just putting this on a list of doing some more deep dive into that topic to see if I can come up with better solutions, because it's terrible to be getting up that many times at night. I mean, that's just crazy. It's going to really interfere with your sleep and your energy during the day, I could imagine.
Yeah, that stinks. So, Kathy, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to need to move along here, but please do let us know how you're doing after adjusting your regime. Okay, let's go to the next quiz question. And here it is, Dr. Berg.
All right. Puffy eyes are a symptom of which organ problem in the body?
All right, I bet Haggis can do that too. Okay, jump on that, audience, and let's see. Why don't we go back to social media? Eva from Facebook, what are your thoughts on carb-blockers?
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, but I think I don't think that's the way to do it, to try to block carbohydrates in the body. You know, I looked at them at one time. There's a lot of side effects. I mean, it's not a healthy thing. I think the best carb blocker would be to not eat carbs or reduce your carbs. But that being said, in this video that I'm going to do, I'll talk about a lot of other things you can do to minimize the damage from carbohydrates and the collateral damage and the complications, and reduce the insulin spike from carbs. But to actually block the digestion of carbs, I don't like that. I don't like that that strategy, because it comes with a package.
All right, sounds terrific. Let's see. I just passed by one. I am so, by the way, admiring of the women in the world. They have more moving parts than us guys, and they bear the world's children. But one thing they don't have is a prostate, and you should be glad, because they're a real pain in the butt. Ziggy from Facebook, what is your advice for someone with prostatitis? Will the keto diet have any effect on the prostate?
Yeah, I think it will, because your ketones are anti-inflammatory. So if you combine intermittent fasting, you're going to reduce inflammation throughout the body, whether you have an autoimmune disease or a prostate inflammatory condition. But I think one big culprit for this prostate inflammation is the dairy. If you get dairy out of the diet with people with prostate problems, the swelling goes down, because there's a lot of hormonal estrogenic effects. Some other things I would avoid if you have a prostate is especially the soy protein isolate, estrogenic effects. So we don't want to add more inflammatory things, and as well as the things like pro-inflammatory omega-6 corn oil, soy oil, canola, cottonseed oil. Instead, do fish oils, cod liver oil for that prostate enlargement. Zinc, very important to help to stabilize an enlarged prostate. So there's a lot more on the topic, and I have videos on it, so you can watch those.
Wonderful. Okay, the audience is lightning fast as usual. They were asked, puffy eyes are a symptom of which organ problem? And our audience said 80% of them at least responded say it's the liver. That's the culprit. 10% say it's the kidneys, 5% say it's the heart, and the last 5% say it's the thyroid. Is anyone on track?
Well, I guess everyone is somewhat correct, but the one that really creates the puffiness is the kidney. It's called periorbital edema, and you get these puffy eyes, lower and higher. I'll be releasing another video on that shortly, but you know, once you identify some of these things, all of a sudden you see people with this problem all over the place, and then you're like, wow, that person has periorbital edema. And so you just have to withhold that temptation to go up to them and say, have you ever been checked for periorbital edema? Because they'll look at you very strange, and you'll be socially rejected. So
awful. Well, anyway, 10% of the respondents said it was the kidney. So they're very bright, and I'm not going to evaluate the rest of them, but they'll have another chance on an upcoming question. Meantime, let's stick with all our friends on social media. Let's see, we already did that one. Abraham from Facebook, what do you suggest for someone who gets bloated from cruciferous veggies? Also, what would be a good alternative to the keto diet?
Well, I think I would switch the type of vegetables, some more salad to see if you still get the bloating. Chances are there's a lot of other things in cruciferous that can bloat you and create gas. But there's also this thing of SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, where you have too much bacteria in your small intestine. So if you have any fiber in it and you bloat, then we know it's probably that. And the solution to that would be to take, of course, betaine hydrochloride, increase the acid, but also bile salts on an empty stomach, because the normal function of bile salts that go beyond just the absorption of the fat soluble nutrients is that it helps kill microbes in the wrong place. It helps kill microbes in your small intestine. That's why the bile salts released into the small intestine, goes down and gets reabsorbed at the distal part or the last part of that small intestine and gets reabsorbed. So if you don't have enough bile, you can't kill up the microbes. Now we get small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and then we get bloating, especially when we eat fiber.
Interesting. Okay, let's fire up another question. You're so fast at it. There you go.
All right, which hormone is behind pattern hair loss?
Okay, gang, get on that. And by the way, we have TJ, who is from California, is coming to us on the phone, so to speak. TJ, can you hear us?
Yes.
Good. Go ahead with your question for Dr. Berg.
Okay. First of all, Dr. Berg, I would like to thank you for your this great public service, for sharing with us your wealth of knowledge and experiences, observations, and the info that we get is not only life-changing, but it's also life-saving. Thank you, doctor. So, I just had my lipid panel test done, and all my lipid levels have significantly increased compared to my lipid level done a year ago. I know that doing keto increases LDL, cholesterol, and so forth, but should I be concerned about the big jump in all my lipid levels, since I have been on keto and intermittent fasting for only 6 weeks?
Yeah. No. If your carbs are low, you shouldn't be concerned, because I would also, first of all, from now on, I would always do an advanced lipid profile. You want to see not just the normal values, but you want to see especially LDL-P, that's the particle sizes. So you want to see if it's large buoyant or small dense. If it's large buoyant, those are harmless. They're large packages of cholesterol floating through the body, and they're not invading the arteries, because you just switched from carbs to more fat, and you're going to mobilize all this fat around your body. So it's not a problem. I think you should watch my recent video on the 2 different types of LDL. But it's not anything to be concerned, because you're going to find that your small, dense lipoproteins are low. But let's say, for example, you have a genetic problem with cholesterol, and it's things are just way too high. Well, then maybe continue to do what you're doing, but just don't add additional fat like the MCT oil. Don't add that. Don't add the keto desserts. Don't add a lot of extra fat. Just have the fat that's normally within the food. The other thing you can do for those people, you could take bile salts, which bile is the major route of getting rid of excessive cholesterol. That's one of its purposes, to get rid of the extra cholesterol. So it could mean you just don't have enough bile to eliminate this extra cholesterol. But I'm trying like heck to get people to understand this complex topic. So I think these next couple of videos I release will do it, because I keep looking at how can I break this down further, but because we're been severely indoctrinated into thinking that cholesterol is bad, it's hard to undo that.
Interesting. Okay. Well, the audience has done it again. Rapid fire question answering. Which hormone is behind, I guess it's male pattern baldness, usually, or I guess pattern baldness if you
Well,
include the ladies.
female too. Could be female as well.
Okay. So 55% of them say it's estrogen, speaking of females. 30% say DHT, and 15% say testosterone.
Okay, so the answer is DHT. What is that? That is a powerful form of androgens, male hormone, in women and men. And so with women, you'll see more of this pattern like thinning all over. And then they might notice the top of their head, the back of the head, they're losing hair. With men, they're going to start seeing receding hair. And then the crown of their head is going to start to disappear. So there's a lot of reasons for this. There's a lot of things you can do to kind of stop it if you get it in time. But if you look very closely at the hairs, they're just growing really slowly. They're really tiny. And there's a lot of nutrients you can feed your scalp. And salt palmetto is a really good remedy that I have in my hair formula that I made sure I put that in there, as well as the Korean ginseng. Both of them are, they help block DHT. One of the things I really want to research is about over 50% of all, well, actually, I think it's close to 60% of all drugs work by inhibiting certain enzymes. So what I want to do is I'm going to do research on looking for natural inhibitors of those enzymes and just give people kind of like a document that they can look up what would be the most potent natural inhibitor of a certain enzyme to create a certain effect. That way you could actually create some cool effects with all these side effects. So that's another project I'm working on, because if you look at like ACE2 inhibitors, calcium channel blockers, all these things are inhibitors, including mechanisms of certain chemotherapy. So I think that would be a very great research project that I'll have to dive into very soon.
Terrific. Well, we've got one patient person left in the green room, and it's Ellen, who is coming from the southern border of Texas. Harlequin or Harlequin, I guess. Anyway, you are unmute yourself, dear, and you're on with Dr. Berg. Thanks for being so patient with us.
Thank you, Dr. Berg.
Sure.
I went and had a CAC score, and it was 1200. I do have a family history of heart problems, and I want to know, I don't have any kind of symptoms or anything. I've been doing really good on my keto and intermittent fasting the last 6 weeks, and I've taken some supplements, but I wanted to know how much, like of the K2, how much do I take, how much of with the D3? That's where I'm confused.
So for everyone that is not familiar with the CAC, it's a coronary artery calcification test. It measures the calcium in the arteries, which is one of the best predictors for heart problems. And you want a score of 0. Hers is 1200, so that's on the high side. So, and she has no symptoms, which is fascinating. And this is one of the things that it's kind of a silent problem. There's a lot of for a lot of problems, there's no symptoms at first. Even with like kidney disease or liver disease, there's no symptoms. So how do you know you have it? So I'm glad you took this test, because now we have a baseline. And then in another 2 or 3 months, you take another test. And we want it to come down. We want to see improvement to pull you out of that, risk zone. So with vitamin K2, which helps to decalcify the arteries, I would take probably per day, I would take 500 micrograms of the M7 version of K2. I would also get a distiller of not an alcohol, but of water. And so you can actually drink your own distilled water that you make from stainless steel in glass jugs. And so why am I recommending that? Because that way you can put certain minerals back in there, like electrolyte powder, and it can help to suck some of the calcium out that you don't need in the body. There's also another supplement called EDTA. It's a chelator. It's a natural chelator. You want to take that on an empty stomach, maybe with that distilled water, and then add the minerals you want later in the day, because we want to start to heal the arteries. Another really important one would be tocotrienols, which will help. It's a very powerful form of vitamin E that will help reduce the heat, the reason why you're building up this calcium in the first place. The other little piece of the puzzle, and this is fascinating data, they have found that in these calcium plaquing in the arteries, there's biofilms. What is that? Well, it's like tartar in your teeth. There's microbes in there. So what does that mean? It means that you need to do some things to help reduce those microbes. And I list a whole series of things in other videos, like colloidal silver, garlic. A lot of garlic would be really good. Oregano oil, things like that. And then over time, as you keep a real low carb diet and do a lot of fasting, I think that your arteries are going to keep improving over time. But I'm glad you have the baseline now, because now you can do something about it. Because if you didn't know that was going on, I mean, it could be a problem down the road.
Well, thank you so much, Ellen, and thanks for coming on, and look forward to hearing from you later as things progress. And we've got, I think, time for one last question. Here you go, Doc.
All right. The best natural remedy for tartar on your teeth is what?
Audience, I know you're going to get on it, and we're going to get it out before the show ends. And let's see. Let's talk about availability of your terrific products around the world, and remind people chiming in from all these different places that they may be able to get it a little cheaper in shipping.
If you are in other places other than the U.S., we now have ways of getting it to you faster and easier and less expensive. So there should be a link down below that you can order these products. So we're constantly working on that. Right now, we're trying to get more into India, because I looked at who's watching my YouTube channel the most by city, and it went like LA, no surprise, New York, no surprise, London, which is number 3rd, and also the largest city in India. So we want to be there, so if people need to get the products, so we're available. So we're working on that.
Fantastic. Well, here's a kindred spirit from YouTube, Kimberly. A shout out to Dr. Berg for his nutritional yeast supplements. I use to be constantly tired, and these supplements have helped me with feeling much better, being more active and happier. Thank you, and I concur. I love those, not only because of their benefit within themselves, but also it just helps me curb an appetite. If I pop 1 or 2 of those in my mouth and crunch them up, I feel sort of sated, and then I can move on to the next period of eating properly without much struggle. So thank you, Kimberly. You and I fist bump and so on that. And let's see.
I had an interesting little comment on the nutritional eats. I was in my practice. There was a couple that came in that were fighting in the waiting room. So I came over there and I put them in separate rooms, and go to your room. And then I treated them separately. And then I gave them both some nutritional yeast. Within about 4 or 5 minutes, all of a sudden, they just felt chilled out. They were back in communication, problem solved. But that nutritional yeast, if you're deficient in B1, you may be grouchy. And it's just because you're low in B1, because you ate too much sugar or carbs or something like that. So a little nutritional yeast can go a long way and help you be a little less grouchy.
Wow, that's terrific. Okay, well, as I promised, our audience has come through. And the final question of the day, in fact, the final question of the month, the best natural remedy for tartar on your teeth is, and 60% of our respondents say coconut oil, 30% say baking soda, and 10% say hydrogen peroxide.
The answer is hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide, don't start drinking gallons of this stuff. I'm just talking about putting it in your mouth as a mouthwash, maybe food grade, and you may even want to dilute it with water. But the point is that that hydrogen peroxide can penetrate biofilms. And guess what? The bacteria that are forming the biofilms, which are calcium little igloos, they actually release hydrogen peroxide. So other microbes that can't get them. It's like this whole universe that's going on in your mouth. And so there's naturally your cells are making hydrogen peroxide. So if you add a little bit more, especially in the early forms of that formation of biofilm, you will prevent that formation because they kill them off, and then you won't have to dig out that tartar. But it's a great remedy naturally for biofilms in general. So you think about it, you put hydrogen peroxide on a table and it will sterilize any microbe, right? Why couldn't you use it in the mouth too, or topically for various things? I will be releasing some videos on that as well. But again, hydrogen peroxide, if it's really strong and you drink, it could be a big problem. So you never want to drink straight hydrogen peroxide.
Okay, final question for the month. Speaking of supplements, Cindy from Facebook, are there any supplements that I could take for severe depression and PTSD? I'm sorry you're going through that. I just can't think straight or make it through the day anymore.
Yes, absolutely. My mind immediately goes to vitamin D3, at least 40,000 international units. So don't just take a little bit, take a lot. And that will help. The other thing you want to take is the B1 nutritional yeast. That's a really good one. You want to be out in the sun because the light therapy. Make sure you get enough sun on your eyes and your face several times a day. The best sun would be early morning and even late night as the sun sets, if you can get that, because then you get the infrared version. And then the other thing too is like adaptogens. Ashwagandha is really good. Lemon balm tea is really essential. I have done a lot of videos on depression and the gut. The gut is a huge connection. So if you start taking a probiotic with fermented vegetables like the sauerkraut, the kimchi, that type of thing, and maybe even some kefir, I'm telling you, that's going to really help you tremendously. So these are all just things I would recommend to pull you out of it. Versus, the drugs that they give have so many side effects. I mean, it's just like, recently they came out and said, well, you know what? We found out there's no evidence that depression is a chemical imbalance. Sorry about that. But, we put millions of people on drugs and create a lot of side effects. But so anyway, the key is if you're going to solve a problem, do it with things that don't create bigger problems.
Good. Well, Dr. Berger, I'm sure I speak for the audience. We're all tearing up slightly, but remind everybody that they can get that new app and look at all your videos while you're gone, and you're going to be posting some during your travels. So we're all so grateful to you, Dr. Berg, and we'll continue to scrub through drberg.com for great counsel while you're gone. And with that, the last word is yours.
Well, I think I would just download the app. And that way you have a backup if you need it, if you're around somewhere, and you can just keep downloading my videos. And I have also the audio version of the video, so you can be driving your car and listening to it, so you don't have to watch the video, which is a cool little thing. And then so we won't be doing the live shows for the next 4 weeks, but after that we'll resume. But of course, every single day I will release another video. So check that out. Again, I appreciate your incredible kind words and your attention. Thank you, and have a great next 4 weeks.